Thank you for listening to the opening statement with Joe Shannon. You can find us on the internet at shannonlawgroup.com or telephone our office at 312-578-9501. Have a terrific day. We're very excited today to talk to Joseph Belliston. He goes by Joe. And Joe's from Salt Lake City, Nevada, and Utah. I don't even know my states. Salt Lake City, Utah, and father of 5, personal growth expert, a huge suicide prevention advocate, entrepreneur. Let's see if we can learn some things from Joe. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so tell me what's going on in Utah these days.
Boy, Utah's probably a lot like the rest of the world, trying to figure out what to do with COVID and trying to figure out if schools are opening up. The sad thing for us with this whole thing was that the ski resorts shut down, and that's a big part of our economy, and it's a big part of our culture and a lot of fun. And so halfway through the season, they shut down. But Utah's actually the number 1 state in job growth, and so everybody's feeling pretty good. It's a great place to live. I love living in Utah because I'm surrounded 360 degrees by mountains. And so every day I'll take a run up in the mountains and the hills, take my kids up on hikes, go fishing. So it's a great place to be. It's a great place to live.
So tell me and tell us actually just about your upbringing. Did you grow up in Utah, your folks, your sisters and brothers, all that type of stuff?
Yeah, I did. So I grew up in northern Utah in a place called Logan. And it's a rural town and a great place to grow up. You know, one of those places where you wake up in the summer and you take off and your parents don't know where you go, but you come back by dinner time. And so it was a great place in that regard. Did a lot of exploring and biking and a lot of on my own. So it was, in my opinion, a great place to grow up and to learn and to develop and meet challenges and be able to overcome those. So no regrets about how I grew up.
That's awesome. And then tell us about your education.
So that's a funny thing. My mom forced me into a music program in school, right? Which I wasn't happy about. I was like, no, I'm not going to do band. You kidding me? I'm going to play basketball. I'm going to, be physical. She's like, just do it for a year. And she forced my hand at that. So I ended up playing in the orchestras and the bands, and I loved it and did that through high school. And it paid my way through college and was able to play in orchestras, traveled all over the world performing, and decided that I didn't want to perform or teach for a living. I did have a music scholarship, so I had to stay in that field if I wanted to get through school, but ended up recording music instead. So studied recording engineering. This is all at BYU in Provo, Utah. And that led me into the career that I have now, which is creating and providing sound for movies and television shows, which is really rewarding. It's creative. I get to work with a lot of neat people and use that skill set that I learned in school and that I loved growing up with music and sound. And so that's kind of fun.
What was your instrument?
I played low brass, so trombone and baritone. A lot of people haven't heard of the baritone or euphonium, but I played that as well as trombone and really enjoyed it. Created a lot.
So trombone is that the one with the use your arm and you?
Yeah, it's the slide, and so you see it a lot in jazz bands and in orchestras, things like that. It's a unique instrument, but it's really fun. It's really fun.
Did you have a side gig being in like a jazz band and all that stuff?
That's what I wanted to do. Yeah. No, I played in jazz bands. I played in, I played piano as well. So, playing in the bands in front of people, that was kind of a rush, and did that every once in a while. But, I don't know if I was never really good enough to take that all the way, I think. So.
That's cool. Yeah. So, BYU, my godson, from the Pacific Northwest went out there and ran cross country and track out there. Okay. And just absolutely loved BYU. He was like, he was actually looking for a campus that was a dry campus.
Okay. Well, that's the
And
driest campus in the U.S. So
he found it at BYU, and it was like, okay, buddy. But he also found a unbelievable coach at Stone,
at
who was
iStone,
an
yeah.
unbelievable running coach down there. They got, and so my school, my alma mater is University of Portland, which is a pretty good running school.
Okay.
And BYU is, same. And then they joined the West Coast Conference this last, 4 or 5 years, and so that rivalry has been great.
Sure.
And yeah, BYU is that's just a powerhouse down there in
Yeah.
Provo.
Well, if he was on the track team, you said he's on the track team or cross country?
Both. He was both. He was so he graduated, I want to say, about 3 or 4 years ago. He just made the Olympic trials at Chicago Marathon
Wow.
this past fall, and it was unbelievable. He had to run like 2:18 or 2:19 on his first marathon. He did it. And this is a guy that works like a tough job for Amazon, and
Yeah.
he basically, I want to say, he did like 25 miles after work.
That is phenomenal. That's amazing. And if
Yeah.
he must be a heck of a runner. And a plug for BYU, this past year they won the national championship
Oh,
in
trust
cross
me, I know
country.
that. Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
I
he
know
must have
that.
been a heck of a runner to be on that team. That's great. Congratulations to him.
Yeah, he's Connor Peliquin's his name. He's out, and shout out to him in Seattle. He's enjoying his time there, and that's great. I know we got sidetracked there, Joe. But so Joe, one of the things that in this podcast I like to do is I like to talk to entrepreneurs, and because one of the reasons I like to do that is I'm hoping that some folks that listen to this podcast, younger people and even older people, can kind of tap into the opportunities out there.
Huh.
You've mentioned that you've got an education that involved a lot of music, and that
Right.
you learn a skill in that, and then you've found a way to monetize that
Right.
and to change it around. And so, that kind of, mindset is something that, I don't think that is wanted, but needed by young folks now. I mean, don't you agree with me on that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, let me backtrack a little bit if I could. I grew up in a pretty traditional home. What I mean by that is traditional values as far as my dad works at, he's a boomer, and he worked at the local university, Utah State University, for his whole career, 30 years, right? And he was a computer support tech there. So not a high profile job. He didn't really think much of it. He always had these brilliant, grand ideas, to be an entrepreneur and, take his ideas to the world. He was very risk averse, and it never developed,
Yeah.
obviously. And so that was what I saw. That's what I grew up knowing. My grandfather was a banker, so the same kind of thing. I was born in 1983, and depending on who you ask and where you look, that's either a millennial or Gen X, right? And so I fall kind of in the no man's land, somewhere in between there, where, I have these boomer values, these traditional values of hard work and loyalty and things like that. But on the other spectrum, I'm part of this millennial generation who wants to explore new possibilities and make an impact on the world. And boy, the thought of staying in one job for 30 years just about, just sends chills up my spine. So that's kind of where I'm at. So when I was going to school, I really didn't know that I could make my own path. That sounds dumb, but I didn't realize I could create my own future, frankly.
Mhm.
So I graduated from college in 2008, which wasn't a great time to graduate. In fact,
Sure, that's procession time, buddy.
right. And the goal at that time was to go to Nashville and become a recording engineer. And I had a good friend at the time that was over there who was recording really successful bands that you've heard of, and so I give him a call and say, hey, I'm going to come out and do an internship for my final summer. Can you hook me up? And he's like, don't come out. There's just studios closing every day on every corner, and it's just a disaster. And talk to my professors. They say, you're kind of on your own as far as this world goes. So, there's no jobs out there, is really what they were saying. And so I was like, well, I guess I do the next thing, which is you go find a job, right? You go find a job in something that will pay the bills, and that's what you do. And that's all I knew. Anyway, fast forward a little bit, and I got some operations jobs with some trucking companies and other, other jobs that didn't really fit what I'd been studying or my passions or anything. And, but I kept it up. So I kept up this recording engineering and started doing some side jobs and odd jobs, purchased some equipment here and there. And to make a long story short, I ended up creating a company, just a sole proprietorship um, where I would create sounds for corporate videos and some TV shows, things like that. And that then expanded into what I do as my full-time job now as a, I guess you'd call it an audio engineer or a sound designer for TVs and movies. And, but as I was doing that, it just opened up to me this knowledge that, you can create your future, you can create your own career. You can, you don't have to let someone else dictate what you do for a job or how much money you make and things like that. Anyway, so after a few jobs, I finally decided to go into it full time on my own. And that's been so rewarding, so rewarding. I wish I would have done it.
What year did you do that, Joe?
I just have a space in my home, in my basement, that I turned into a studio, and that's where I do it. So from the comfort of my home, and it's not super ideal, but it certainly gets the job done, and it works really well.
When did you start doing that full time, Joe? When did you make that leap?
It's been a year and a half now, so the end of 2018.
That's awesome. So, and are you able to create the amount of money that you need to support your family?
I doubled my income from my previous job, so last year.
Yes, sirree, my friend.
And that's really exciting in and of itself. But what's more exciting than that is just that, because I'm kind of a risk averse person myself. I like to make sure everything's planned and calculated. And when you go out into business on your own, that's never a sure thing, right? And so that's what I have enjoyed more than the income, frankly, is the freedom and the knowledge that I can make this happen. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but it's been
no, I trust with me. I'm kind of the same route. So can I give you my story real quick?
Yeah.
I'm a history major, right? So okay. How many jobs are there for history majors?
Well, you're going to be a teacher, right?
You know what? I wasn't. I got kind of, I was in the arts and sciences, and I liked it. And I figured out I always wanted to know the backstory.
Yeah.
And so then I said, I'm going to dig down on this. And then I figured, and then I looked into history, and there were some pretty good professors at my University of Portland on history. So I said, I want to find out more about why things happen. So I did that. And then, I gravitated towards law school, and it was a pretty good place for a guy like me because I was able to communicate decently, write okay, and advocate, that type of thing. And so, but when I got out, I was looking for the same thing you were. I am a boomer, 63, and 1963 is when I was born. And so I'm on the tail end of it. And I wanted just to get a job that was, a nice firm. So I worked for firms, what they call defense firms. So I represented, companies and insurance companies, that type of thing. I did that for about 4 years in Portland, Oregon, and then 4 years here in Chicago. And then I had the same thing that you thought of, and I, do my own thing. And I did that that was 24 years ago. And I've never looked back. And, but the realization, though, that you could do it and dictate how you are and not basically look for a job is a nice feeling. It's an independence thing that a lot of Americans have. And I think we're going to have to educate everybody, from grade school to high school, that they have to have an ownership in their own career. And so I think side gigs are going to be a big thing, is that you have a job, but you also have a side gig. And so, I've tried to create different side gigs as I've gone on, just because I enjoy it so much. Right. And so I'm the same way as you are. I think, once you find out, I mean, you're 37 years old, right?
Yep.
So you're going to, you get better and better and better at it as time goes on, because, running a company you get a new respect for how hard it is to run a company.
Right.
You also get it. You also, you're investing in yourself, so it's a good move, right?
Yeah. Well, and to your point, I think you will see more of a move in the future this direction, just because the technology that's out there, the personalities that are out there, they want more freedom, and I think it's in a lot of ways it can be more efficient. It can be a lot more effective work. Um, so I think there will be a shift in that direction, and it's allowed me personally to look for other opportunities as well. So um, after starting this, well, and to your point, not only does it uh, not only do you I mean, you learn so many different things, not just the skill or the trade or the craft that you're selling, right, or that you're providing, but how to run a business. I mean, it's so much education in that realm as well, but it's opened my eyes to other possibilities and opportunities. So I have other ventures that I'm doing right now as well, starting a business with a good friend of mine and hoping to launch that later this year. And anyway, it's just, once you open that floodgate, the possibilities I think are endless. So you just have to get it started.
Right. And so, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was your really cool emphasis that you have on your podcast, and maybe you could share a little bit with that with us.
Sure. So this idea came to me a couple years ago as I was mowing the lawn, actually. And the podcast is called Heroes Like You. And the whole idea behind it is to help inspire and motivate people going through tough times in their lives by learning from successful people who have overcome challenges. And there are many, many out there. When I was younger, my aunt took her life. And as I've grown older, I mean, you could probably ask anybody in the country right now if they know someone personally or know of someone who's been affected by suicide, right?
Yes.
There's probably nobody that has not been affected by it in one way or the other. And I remember the first place that we lived after I got married, it was an apartment complex, and 2 doors down, our neighbor took his life. There have been neighbors and family members of neighbors that have committed suicide. It's just rampant. I was thinking, why is that? That was the first question that came to mind. Why is it increasing? Since 1999, the suicide rate has increased every year significantly. And the ages are starting to get younger and younger, which is just a tragedy to me, because personally, I think first of all, they're dying too young. They're leaving too early. And what could they do if they stayed, right? There's some research out there that says, if people that are going through a crisis, the crisis lasts about 90 days. And if they can get through that 90 days, then the chance of them dying by suicide decreases significantly, like significantly. So it's really a short period of crisis. And if we can help people get through that time, then they will live happy, productive lives, And so that's my goal, is to just help people get through their time of crisis and understand that people have done this before. If other people have done it, you can do it. Everybody has the ability and the capacity to get through challenges. Anyway, I've looked into it a lot, and the problem is we don't really know why the suicide rate is increasing. We have a lot of data on what we can do to prevent it, but we don't know why people are doing it necessarily. Does that make sense? So it's kind of hard that way, but I think I get really motivated and inspired by biographies and the lives of people that have done great things. And I'm hoping that other people will gravitate towards that as well and understand, man, I can really do this. It's been done before, and there's a lot to live for. And, these bumps in the roads, and sometimes they're more than bumps. I mean, you talk about clinical depression and other things like that, which I'm not qualified to talk about, but, other forms of depression and just challenges and adversity in our lives, those can be good if we know how to deal with them and get through them. So.
Sure. That Heroes Like You podcast, I'm going to listen to some of them, just because you've got some pretty decent personalities that you've interviewed that have overcome a lot. Isn't that the case?
Oh, yeah. So my first interview, I was really fortunate to have Lou Holtz on. And so he's the Hall of Fame college football coach from Notre Dame, coached several places. But his story is just outrageous. I mean, he comes from a family of, miners, right? And his future didn't look any brighter than the inside of a steel mine, right? Of a steel mill. And look what he went on to accomplish. And he grew up with an incredible speech impediment. He has a lisp, and but the things he was able to do, I've spoken to Olympians, and one of my favorites is Bill Schufenauer, who grew up on the streets and in and out of foster homes, and ends up winning a silver medal with the U.S. bobsled team, right, in 2002. And I've had Mrs. America, just so many others that have just remarkable stories, and every single one of them have the same theme. They've all struggled. We look at Olympians, or I interviewed a Green Beret. We look at a Green Beret or a Navy SEAL, or we could even look at musicians or TV stars, and we think their lives are wonderful, which they could be. But every single person, you included, Joe, has gone through a really challenging time at some point, and you got through it. And most of the time, those challenges and those trials, those adversity, make us stronger and help us become better, and allow us to help other people that may be going through similar things. So that's the theme with every single one of the guests that come on is, they've found success, and many of them have achieved at the highest level in their fields. But they've all struggled. They've all struggled to get there, and they deal with the same struggles that you and I do. They just know how to overcome it. And most of the time it's controlling the mind, right? It's all in the mind.
Right. Lou Holtz is, so when I went to Notre Dame Law School, Coach Faust was the coach my first year of law school, and I thought he was just a great guy. It just didn't work out. Notre Dame, it's just pressure cooker, and he came from Faust High School, and in Moeller, he came from Moeller High School, and in Ohio, and he was ultra successful. Just didn't. But then, Holtz came in, and just. My first year I was in London. I remember my second year I was in London, and I was watching the season kind of in a weird way from London, and you could just see the team transform.
Yeah. With
this little guy who I can't even believe played college football at I think he's at Kent State or something like that. Yeah, he was like such a small guy, but just the power of the will. But the second year, complete transformation. Then the third year they won it all in '88, and that was just an amazing transformation, basically on mindset. Yeah. He had the way to change the mindset of a whole group of people, and so wow, what a blessing to have a gift from him, as a guest, because that guy is, to me, is a pretty amazing guest. One of the funniest things he always tells about is when he was coaching at William and Mary. This was his first job, I think, as a football coach. He said they had too many Marys and not enough Williams.
Well,
it was pretty funny.
No nonsense kind of guy, but he's also really empathetic, and like you said, he really works on the mindset. His thing is all about choices and small choices, and you make enough small choices, and it's going to lead to great or devastating results, right? So.
Yeah, that guy, he's big into, and one of the things about suicide is, my mother suffered, she had 10 kids, and she was diagnosed, and she had really a tough physical problems. She had chronic fatigue, all that type of stuff, but she had probably the deepest faith life of anybody that I know. Mm. So she'd get up, whether she wanted to or not, she'd get up every, like 5 or 6 in the morning. She had a book that she prayed for all these different people every single day. And she basically, so she definitely, was a Mother Teresa type person, God first, others second, me last type person. Yeah. And she was like, basically would would pray and put a lot of her anxiety or suffering in God's hands, and then also she would basically pray for other people and kind of move the thoughts about her and her problems to serving other people.
Right.
And I think that's helped me a lot too with any problems or stress or anxiety that I have. Having some sort of faith, in something that is bigger than us, I think is a huge thing in dealing with either these chronic problems, physical, emotional. I mean, you and I agree that some of these things, this clinical depression, and the psychiatrists and the psychologists have their hands full in helping out folks. And there's so many different ways to do that. But there's also, for people that have episodic depression or problems that bad things don't go their way, and you and me, this has happened. Just having that sense of faith has been helpful to me. How about you?
Oh, there's no question. I think that's a great point. And I think that I have a couple theories, and they're completely unproven. But I think there's a wave of faithlessness in our country and the world. And I don't think that is helping. And I think life is too easy. We have so many conveniences and comforts right now that we don't struggle on a daily basis. And so when we do, we don't know how to deal with it. We kind of freak out. Back to your point on faith, that has guided me my whole life. I grew up in a very faithful home, and we'd get up and read scriptures and we'd pray every night. And I remember I served mission work for a couple years in Hong Kong.
Wow.
That's an experience when you leave home and you're going to, preach Jesus, as they say in Hong Kong, and you don't know the language and you're struggling. And I've never had suicidal thoughts or anything like that. I've been depressed, but I remember several nights, especially my first few months there, where I would lay in bed and be like, I am completely okay if I never wake up. I mean, this is rough. And it was only the faith that I had that got me through that time. My faith in God and my prayers that got me through that. And it was a great time as well. I mean, I got closer with my maker during that time than I ever have before or since. And so I think it was a choice time, but I've looked back on that, the rest of my life. It's been 18 years now. And that has helped me so much. And relying on my faith in a higher power and God has really guided me and helped me through many of my struggles. So I completely 100% agree. The more faith we have, you can call it whatever you want, in a higher power, in God, in the universe, that can do nothing but help, in my opinion.
My wife is she's funny. She at Christmas time, she usually likes to have the whole family go see a musical. And one year she signed us all up to go downtown Chicago and see Fiddler on the Roof. Have you seen that before?
Yeah. That's my wife's favorite pastime is going to a musical or a play. So we love that. Yeah.
So one of them, I saw the movie a long time ago. I don't know if you've seen the movie. And the guy that plays Tevye in that one, the father, is this guy named Topol. I think I pronounced it right. But that guy is an absolute unbelievable actor. But the thing that I really liked about it, for the people that are listening, it's basically the plight of Russian Jews during the pogrom in Russia, and they were basically moving all the Jews out and killing a lot of them. And it was this father, and he had a bunch of girls, and they were, making their way into a more modern world, and he was resisting it. And but the way that he talked to God was absolutely what I want. Yeah. It was a personal conversation. He'd look up and he would just talk to him like, hey, I don't know what you're doing here, God, but give me a break here. I got my daughter. She's hanging out with somebody that's not Jewish. I don't know what to do. You got to help me out here, whatever. And it was like, it's so well written, and the music is so beautiful, and the dancing. I mean, a guy like you with, the orchestra experience would be a better person to evaluate it. But and my kids, reluctant as they were to go to it, still talk about it.
Yeah. Well, what's that? There's a great quote in there where he's talking to God, and he says, if riches are, I forget how it goes. I'm going to slaughter it now, but if riches are a curse, just strike me with it. Let me suffer with the consequences. But no, I love that. He's very conversational. You're right. And I think we can have that same relationship with God. Wouldn't it be awesome if we did? I mean, if we believe he's the creator of the universe, can do all things, and he can be our friend at the same time, we can just have a conversation. How cool is that?
Yeah, and I try to get practical with people that are faithless. We talked about this. And I talked about, a number of my guests is there's a group. The biggest group in our society is the NONE, the nuns, which means they don't basically believe in anything.
Okay.
And so my practical discussion on these types of things is a faith life is it was kind of second nature to the boomers. I mean,
okay.
Just the way it was. And
right.
But the freedom, the lack of struggle that you're talking about, and all this type of things is that, hey, listen, things are just provided to us, we take them and whatever. But the way I have always looked at it is there's a practical argument to be made in that having a mindset that putting others first, which basically a lot of organized religion does.
Yeah.
God first, others second, me last, that type of, approach that's basically what's ingrained, is a practical thing, because think about it with society. Would you steal something from somebody if you put others first? I don't think you would.
Right.
Would you lie to them? I mean, if you thought there was a higher power and that was basically kind of figuring out what your situation was, you had a belief system. These are all practical things that help America be America, or and that's the kind of approach. It's a practical approach.
Yeah. No, I think we're certainly losing that. And you're right. Things would certainly go in a different direction if we had that mindset, that frame of reference. Now, there is something to be said for, you say God first, family second, me last, or others second.
Yeah.
There is a place for taking care of ourselves, right? Because I'm a believer in burnout as well, right? If we go and can't never take a moment for ourselves, then that's not going to lead to a good place either. However, I don't know. You ask 9 out of 10 people who dedicate themselves to serving other people, or not even dedicate themselves, but who serve other people regularly, and they will tell you that they get more back in return, right? Whether that's a feeling of accomplishment or self-worth or self-esteem, or they get something physically back as a result of doing service. It makes them happier people. And I think self-serving and just focusing on me actually takes us down a more negative road and decreases happiness in general. There is something intrinsic about serving other people that helps us be happier. And there are dozens of studies on this. But you're exactly right. If we had more faith and we had more service and more others oriented, we'd be in a much better place. Certainly ourselves and as a society.
Yeah. But let's go back to that thing about, yourself. Now, so that is a really good point, because, and this gets into the point of the suicide issue, I think, somewhat. I mean, obviously we're not experts. We're just two guys talking on the street corner here.
Yeah.
But I think that at a basic level, raising children, you have 5 kids, right,
Yeah.
Joe?
Uh-huh. Yep.
So I've got 6, and is basically teaching your kids to love themselves. I think you do have to love yourself, and before you can reach out to other people.
Yeah.
I mean, and so that the recognition that I see is that it's a recognition that I'm created, that God created me, that I'm special, that I have a mission in life, that God creates only good, and that once I have that gratitude in myself, then I'm able to pass it on.
Yeah.
And I think what's really, sad is that a lot of people don't like themselves, even though they're basically wildly successful, from the outside. It's kind of like a social media world that, people want to be popular, and it popularity for popularity's sake, but they find out there's maybe popular on the outside,
Yeah.
but the quality of their relationships with others is so thin.
Right.
That's one thing that my father just passed away. He was 98 years old,
Wow.
just a great guy. It's a celebration. He had a great life and a lot of faith. But I was talking about, I wrote something about it, and one of the things that his riches were the depth of his relationships with people. And I think that's where the move is, and I think that's why, that you reach out for your podcast, is because you're trying to develop and let people see that that's the important richness, is developing relationships with people and helping people get through those 90 days.
Yeah.
Is to have that support group around you. If you don't have family, what kind of friends are out there? What kind of people that they can reach out to help them? Don't you agree?
Absolutely. There's no question. And if I did any research into these podcasts that I've done, that would be the number one piece of advice that all of these guests suggest, is you have to have a support group. You have to. But going back to your point, you say you got to love yourself and love others. That's absolutely true. In our family, we preach respect, and Lou Holtz does this too. You have to respect people. And
Right.
a little tangent here, and I'm just terrible with names. I wish I was better. That's one area that I want to work on. But so I'm just going to throw out titles here. But the dream team, right? You have Michael Jordan, you've got John Stockton, Karl Malone, you've got Charles Barkley, you've got Clyde Drexler, all these, just superstar basketball players, right?
Yeah.
And the coach, the coach and the assistant coach were going to have their first meeting with the dream team. And the assistant coach was just going out of his mind. We're going to have all of these people in a room, and we got to say something to them that's going to inspire them, or that, they don't need a coach, right?
Yeah.
They can go win any game without a coach. And the head coach is like, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. And the assistant's just losing his mind. And the day comes, they finally get in the room together, and the coach says two things. One, we have to win, or they're not going to let us back in the country. Okay. And then the second thing is, the way we're going to do that is you have to be on time to the bus. Show up to the bus on time. And then he goes around the room and he names every single player. Because if you're not on time, that means you disrespect John, you disrespect Carl, you disrespect, Michael. And he goes around the room and he said, it's all about respect. We have to respect each other if we're going to win, if we're going to make this. And then he left. So be on time to the bus. Who was the first one to the bus every single time?
Jordan.
Jordan was the first one to the bus every single time. And just an interesting story, but the point is, we have to respect each other, right? We have to be there for each other. We have to serve each other. These guys were the best in the world, and they probably had egos. I don't know any of them personally, but I'm sure they had egos and me, right? I can do it. The coach's point was, we have to be there for each other. We have to respect each other. We have to love each other if we're going to be successful. I think the same is true in life. We have to respect ourselves, love ourselves first. And once we get that through our heads, then we're not going to have poor self-esteem. We're not going to beat ourselves up. And once we get that strong, then we can focus on others and build others up, which in turn builds us, which, in turn builds everybody around us. Fix yourself, help your family, help your neighbors, help a community, help a nation, help the world, right? And no, I think great point.
Yeah. And so tell me about your new venture. What are you going to get into here, Joe?
Okay.
Or is it top secret?
No, this is good stuff. So this is something that I'm really excited about, and it's called Goal It. Now, have you ever started a goal that you haven't finished?
Many times.
Many times. We all have. What percentage of people complete their New Year's resolutions?
I
Hey,
would say I would say probably less than 5%.
yeah, it's about that, right? And most of them, the majority are done by the beginning of February, right? And so most
Right.
of us don't finish goals that we start. This is including athletes, this is including in careers, as families, just individuals. We don't finish goals we start. So we've been doing this thing for 2 or 3 years now, where we've developed kind of a platform that almost guarantees you finish any goal you start. So our success rate is 95%. And
Wow.
it's pretty good. And it's built on the fact that you have an accountability partner, you've got social support, like we talked about. And then another key is fear of loss. So before you start a goal, you have to put up what we call an accountability deposit or collateral. So you put up money that if you don't finish, you lose it, right?
I'm liking this.
Yeah, and there were a lot of, I mean, this has developed over the years, it's evolved. Um, but let me give you one example. So are you familiar with Spartan race at all?
Yes.
So it's an endurance race that's kind of caught the world by storm. My brother-in-law has been asking me he's been trying to convince me for 4 years to do one, right? And I was like, that sounds dumb. And last year he finally got me into one and I was hooked. I mean, it's sweet. It's a neat experience. Anyway, so we signed up. Come to find out, my neighbor just down the street happened to be the director of endurance for Spartan at the time. And he's since left, but that's what he was last year. And so he's like, yeah, I'll train you. So we had about 8 weeks to train. And he said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a workout. You have to report to me every day that you did it or you didn't do it. Okay. And then I had my wife do it with me. All right. So that was some extra motivation. And then he says, and here's what I'll do. I'll do it for free. But if you don't do a workout, then you have to pay me. So I was like, okay. So that was even more motivation. So that's kind of, again, the three
I
pillars.
like it. Yeah, I
So
like it.
my accountability partner. I had some social support with my wife. We were doing it together. And if I didn't do it, I was going to lose some money. So that's the idea. We're building an app right now that helps with that. So you're in a group, you choose your own goal, and it's a 6-week period. But you can keep doing it over and over and over again. But I also believe in small wins. You have to get a win. A New Year's resolution often fails.
Yes.
Too long. It's just too long. When you stumble once or twice or 3 times, then you're done. So anybody can do anything for 6 weeks, and once you get that win, it's just motivation to keep going. And boy, I think the potential for that is really, I think it would help people reach their potential, really. If you never again failed at a goal that you started, every goal is worthwhile that you start, otherwise you wouldn't have it. And if you never failed at one, think of where you'd be in 10 years or next year, right? I think it'd be
So is there a website yet, or are you going to roll it out?
we're going to roll it out. There's a rudimentary website. It's goalit.live, Live.
So
It's
GOALIT
yes,
dot LIV.
Live.
Okay. Okay. LIV. Okay. Good.
Yeah. And so again, we're hoping October-ish, it's going to be up and running.
Nice.
The stuff that we're doing there. So I'm excited about that. And hopefully other people will be excited about it and jump on board as well.
And then, so what do you want to leave us with, Joe? What's important in your life right now? Going forward here, what's going to happen the next 5 years with Joe Belliston?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, I think I was thinking about passion the other day, and because a lot of people say find a career where you can where you're passionate and where you can go to work and you do it even if you didn't get paid, right? And I was thinking, like, do I have any passions? What would I do? I like music. I like the sound stuff I'm doing. I'm really passionate about the podcast, the suicide prevention, all these things, but maybe my attention span is too short or something. I don't know if I would do any of these things for
Yeah.
a long period of time. I think my passion is progress. And so as long as I'm progressing and helping other people progress, I think that's what I'll be doing. So I'm going to be in a much different place than I am. I have some specific goals that I've set for the next 5 and 10 years. But I'm going to be progressing. I'm going to be better. this is one reason I kind of like the my quote unquote day job right now in helping develop these movies and these TV shows, because they come to me and they're just, I mean, they're unwatchable, right? And so I can help those progress and transform into something that the public would watch, right? And I think that's more than the craft. That's what I'm passionate about, is seeing progress. And so I hope to have Gullet up and running. I hope to have many thousand listeners on the podcast. I hope to be making a difference in the lives of other people and helping others and myself just progress and reach our potential, be what we were sent here to be. So that's where I hope.
That's great. And then I'm sure your thoughts are with the people in Hong Kong right now too.
Oh boy, I've been following that, and what a tragic situation that is. I think they'll get through it, but yeah, thoughts and prayers with them, as well as with, this country right now, with COVID. And man, I feel like we are enduring the 1918 flu, Spanish flu, the crisis and the economic crisis of the 20s, 30s, and then we're back in 1960 with all of the social problems. So thoughts and prayers with the country. Hopefully we can. Well, I know we can come out on top, but we just gotta take these values that we are as humans and as Americans, and have respect and love for each other. So
yeah, I agree. And I think sometimes I tell folks that are get a little bit down. I say, what, the way that you turn things around is in your own family, and just serve your spouse, serve your kids, and then reach out to your neighbors one by one, and don't get don't get too depressed about the macro world.
Yeah,
you can't control, because you're not there. But do what you can. Obviously, people that are in the leadership positions, that I basically hope that they have the best intentions of everybody and can do the best they can. But relying on those folks is just not the point either.
Right.
But yeah, it's a real complex web that we live in. But you know what? I lived abroad for a year. I lived in London, and I came back to the United States, and I kissed the ground. I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. I try and I recommend to everybody that if they can, just take a couple weeks and drive all over this beautiful country and see it with the great history and, the bad parts of our history, the good parts of our history, what we've learned, and then just be decent to everybody. I mean, if you drive around the United States, you will meet the nicest people.
Oh yeah.
Ever. And it's just a great thing. I mean, obviously you went all the way to Hong Kong and met them.
Yeah. I mean, people are the same all over the world. We all have the same self-interest, but we all have the same needs.
Yeah.
And man, I don't care what your beliefs are, what color you are, where you came from, what your social status is. Everybody's the same. Yeah. Everybody is the same. We should treat them as such. We're all just family. So
right. I'm with you, Joe. Hey, listen, I want to really thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us. And I want to eventually talk to you again and see how that Gullet.live is. And really just, I'm hoping that it works, so that people do it and get their goals, because, it's hard to meet goals. And I'm glad that you're giving people the tools to do that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on. It's been a great conversation. Love talking with you, and let's do it again.
All right. See you, Joe.
Hey, see you later.
Hi, this is Joe Shannon. I'm a lawyer, a husband, a father of 6 kids, and I also host a podcast called Opening Statement with Joe Shannon. Please consider listening to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and any other folks that host podcasts. Just Google Joe Shannon and podcast, and you'll find it. I hope you enjoyed the show.